bit of a rundown on this. The podcast is called Finding Me.
I love that.
It's about recently I went through some changes, decided to start a journey of discovery, trying to find myself, which through this I thought would be quite lonely because obviously your path of discovery is very solo, but met a lot of great people who are kind of trying to discover themselves, go through changes themselves, find who they want to be. So that brings us to this episode today with Robyn Drummond. So for people who don't know yourself, give me a bit of a breakdown to who you are, what you do, what's your story.
Okay, what's the story is quite a big topic. Okay, so my name is Robyn Drummond, and it's lovely to, I suppose, meet people who are listening. So I currently am an online personal trainer / nutritionist, and I am a fitness business owner. So I have 2 businesses at present because one wasn't enough. I run my online health and fitness app, which is called Thrive, and I have recently launched our face-to-face community weight management club called the Nutrition Club. So that's pretty much where I'm at the moment, but I've been a qualified PT for 10 years, spent 5 of which working face-to-face, which was great. However, obviously due to COVID, that's when we were kind of all forced to go online and never really had an option. It was never something that I believed that I could do, was one, be self-employed or ever go online. I remember actually refusing to do it because I was like so anxious.
Yep.
And basically found myself with an opportunity to create a business and took the opportunity, and here we are. So whilst I've done this now for 10 years, 5 of which I've now done on my own, that's pretty much a very quick whistle-stop tour of the last 10 years. But I'm happy to dive in on any particular,
Perfect.
There's a big story.
Going back to 2013,
yeah,
you were a crew member in McDonald's.
Yeah.
So coming from obviously like the PT's biggest enemy, McDonald's, instant fast food, simple. What takes us to here? 2 businesses, literally thriving. Names Thrive. PT and trying to do the opposite of what McDonald's wants people to do. Where was this change when you were student at McDonald's and you thought, no, this is next?
It's funny looking back on there, because I actually said this recently. I was eating McDonald's every day for my break. And I think there's something in that, because actually my ethos towards food is having a very balanced approach. And I think that's why, I attract a lot of people that have tried diets in the past and whatnot. And the fact that actually when it comes to, so I specialise in fat loss. When it actually came to fat loss, it never actually made a difference. So anyway, but that's a conversation for another time. Okay, so going right back, I suppose 2013, I never really, I always knew what I wanted to do, but I never really had, I never had any qualifications. I didn't really do very well in school, so going right back to the very beginning. I'm originally from Glasgow. And it's nothing to say there's anything wrong with being from Glasgow, and that equates to having no qualifications. But I'm originally from Glasgow, and I didn't do very good in high school. So interestingly, now I have an ADHD diagnosis. I wish it'd probably been picked up in the past, but here we are. And left school with no qualifications. I was always very sporty though. I did fencing, which was quite a bizarre sport. And some people don't know that about me, but I did fencing for years. And I always kind of knew it. Weirdly, I grew up with this kind of vision of wanting to be a sport coach in America. I have no idea why. I don't want to do that anymore. But I knew that it was in fitness some way or another. But as I say, we then moved over here 2012 to Fife. And I never came from a family or a background that, were financially advantageous in any way. So I knew that I wanted to do something, but I didn't know what it was, and I could never afford to do it. So that was really it, to be honest. McDonald's was my first job, and do you know what? It was actually one of the best jobs I'd ever had, and I remember my dad used to work at McDonald's when I was wee as well. So kind of followed footsteps into him. I mean, he's evolved into other areas now, but yeah, it was actually one of the best jobs I'd ever had, because, you're almost forced to learn about communication. They put you through qualifications, which was great. And I think from there, I actually applied to college. It was Fife College. And it was through, thankfully, having a student loan. What was funny is I applied to do business management, which I wish I'd kind of stuck at, because who knew that I'd actually need a business management qualification. And it was through that student loan was pretty much how I was able to then consider doing anything else in my life. But yeah, that's pretty much kind of where it started, where the thought process into the fitness industry.
So I suppose coming back to Fife College for this is a bit of a tenuous link.
Absolutely. And the incredible thing is I'm in partnership with Fife College as well. Like, so, I mean, I hope I'm allowed to share. I guess I'm allowed to share anything. But I'm in partnership with them. So as an employee benefit for the staff, both the businesses, like staff, basically get a portion paid for them by the college to improve their health and well-being. So I never ever thought that I would, one, be that person working at McDonald's, to then working for our local leisure centre, and then being the other option for their kind of employee benefit, because like their other options are a local leisure centre. So when I worked there for 5 years prior to being online, I never imagined that that's like I'd be sitting here today being like, oh, I'm in Fife College, like not in competition with, but like ultimately the other options are, the biggest provider in Fife, which is crazy. So, but yeah.
So obviously there's different steps there, massive evolution and different growth. What would be like the 3 rules, whether it be in life or in business, that I suppose that you've adopted and try and live by? Like if there's maybe not 3 rules, 3 mantras, 3 things that you look at and you think, right, this is what gets me through, or this is what gets me to here.
This is a great question. I think that's something that's definitely evolving. Like for me, I don't think I've nailed many. I guess the number one thing is my ability to take risks. Now, obviously, please choose the risks that you take wisely. Like, please. However, I think that on reflection, I was somebody that was not confident. I really struggled with my mental well-being. A few things, happened in my upbringing, like as a young person, that really destroyed me. And, I really struggled with my confidence. I really struggled with my self-esteem, of which is probably one of the biggest reasons why I got into the fitness industry, or why I do what I do now. But I think through that, for example, when I got offered that loan from college, someone had said to me, fortune favours the brave, and that's why I've got that tattoo on my back now. That quote ended up following me for years, because I used to see it everywhere, and it's so true. It is, fortune does favour the brave, or favour the bold. And I left college, took that money, and paid for my qualifications privately, and that was the first real risk that I'd taken. And I think that, like, obviously, you want to make your family proud by, following societal norms by going to college, getting qualified, or going to uni, whatever. So it's almost like you're not only considering taking a huge risk that way, you're almost like worried about how everyone else is going to perceive you for taking such a big risk. But I knew what I wanted to do, and whilst, yes, having a business now is amazing, and business management would have really helped, I really also wanted to be in the fitness industry, obviously. So now I put the two together. So that was the first big risk. And the second, the biggest one, I guess these two things are so significant in my journey, was when I then got qualified as a level 2 gym instructor. I was a member of the gym at the time, so I kind of was known, and I did meet, I knew people like that worked there and stuff, but they had a job interview for a 0-hour contract, like a casual gym instructor. But at this point, I'd gone from McDonald's and a couple other kind of restaurants and stuff, and working my way up in the hospitality industry up to being an event supervisor. It's so random. I ended up working in a place in Edinburgh on George Street that like served people like David Attenborough. Like, it was so random. But I knew that whilst that job was amazing for somebody, it wasn't right for me. As a young person, I was getting a salary that only young people at that time would have dreamed about. But then this 0-hour contract, no guarantee of money, came up. I was like, well, I don't really want to do my job, but I really want to be a gym instructor, and this is the first way in. So I do remember being really encouraged by a parent to take the risk. And I did. I quit that job. I was like miserable, getting up at 5, getting the bus to Edinburgh, repeating the same cycle Monday to Friday. I absolutely hated it. I was so miserable. My boss was a real dictator. She was so nasty. I'd cry all the time. Oh, sorry if she ever listens to that. Oh well, doesn't matter. But like, you made me cry a lot, okay? And and then essentially I left and took a 0-hour contract within the gym. And that was the second biggest risk. So I think, like, whilst that's, I guess, just one rule, it was more that, like, when you were faced with these barriers or faced with these challenges, the more risks that you take, the bigger they do keep becoming, which is annoying because you're like, oh no, another big decision. But you become more confident to make scary choices for yourself. So, I'd say that's definitely the most important one, for sure. I guess it's not really a rule or mantra as such, but I think it's my ability to reframe things has totally changed. So much has happened in the last 4 or 5 years that I could have deemed a fail. Like, I could have deemed as I'm an absolute failure, or I've failed business, or I've failed this. And I think, when you just ultimately learn to reframe a lot that happens to you in life, you just see it as a learning opportunity, and reflecting on it to think, well, what could I have done differently? What can I do in the future that's, that's not going to happen like that again? Or what have I learned from it? But yeah, and always ask for opportunities, because they're never going to come find you, ever. Same way you asked me to come here. Yeah. Like, I never, anything that's ever happened to me, I have never had given to me. No. So often, like, I'll maybe get, like, so if I have college partnership, like, I went to them, I said, do you want a free workout? That's how it all started. Conferences, do you need a speaker? Do you need this? Do you need, like, schools? I'll email all the time, being like, I can help. Opportunities are never going to just land at your doorstep. Like, I've asked for everything, and whilst you will get no's, you will get yeses, and each yes is like, has that butterfly effect that something else good will come off the back of it. So, yeah.
So, take the risk, look for the lesson.
Yeah.
And
like
don't
that.
Wait on opportunities to come for you. Yeah.
That's good. I like that.
So, I guess that kind of takes me on to the next part, which is, what would be your biggest defining moments in your journey? Not just business, not just life, the whole journey. And it doesn't necessarily need to be always great, the good and the bad, because loads of people think it's just an easy uphill. But obviously there's the ups, there's the downs. So what would you say your main sort of defining moments are when you look back at McDonald's to now? What's kind of nudged you either direction?
I think I'm going to share the most recent one, because I think that this was a real pivotal moment in my life that I think that many people would somewhat benefit from. And it was about choosing my environment, and changing my environment was so important. And it was something that I never thought that I'd ever had to consider. And when people talk about changing your environment and being around people, because ultimately, like, positivity attracts positivity. And if you hang around with people that are successful, you are more likely to adopt these habits, However, on the flip side of that, you surround yourself by people that perhaps are, negative, or, start to resent you. You do start to notice how that can impact your behaviours, or people will start to try to manipulate what you do because they don't want to see you succeed. And I never realised that this would ever happen to me. And I guess it did. And you start to notice little kind of small bits of resentment in people. And the thing is, I think is crazy is, like, when 2020 arrived, like, obviously COVID arrived, and we were faced with that, like, I was faced with the opportunity that every single person was faced with. I never anticipated to be, I never wanted to be a business. I never went, like, I've dreamt about it, but I never thought I would become, like, have my own business and become successful or whatever. And like, that success, like, just, especially the first 2 years, like, totally grew, and it was accidental almost. So I only just took the opportunity and went with it and learned as I was going. So, anyway, kind of 4 years later, you start to notice that, like, you become, you're sitting in rooms that you almost don't recognise yourself in anymore, and you don't have anything to contribute to a conversation with. And then, unfortunately, people that are closest to you start to stop celebrating your wins anymore and almost like kind of give you negative responses to them instead of celebrating with them, you know? So, and I will always encourage my clients, and even I will always celebrate every small win. I don't care how small, I will celebrate every single day. And I want everyone to do that. You have to shout about yourself, and not in a braggy way, but be proud of yourself for doing things that are really good. So yeah, I think that, I suppose, I don't know if that really truly answers your question, but for me, last January, I chose to leave an environment where I was like, do you know what, this isn't serving me anymore. And in doing so, I lost a lot of people around me. I lost close friends and family. And you know, it's a bit crazy, but like I am so much better off not having that around me anymore. And in other podcasts, there's a, I don't know if you've ever heard Hormozy talk about the lonely chapter. I often think that that's what I'm going through right now. So I often, like, on days where it maybe doesn't feel it does feel really lonely, and you feel like you are like literally going through this on your own, especially approaching 30. I'm like, oh my God, like not quite a midlife crisis, but I would explain that that's kind of what that transition that I've gone through in life, you know. So there's so many other real defining moments, I guess. There's been a lot. Like the first 2 years was just like, I just never took a single day for granted. I didn't really know what was going on, to be honest.
Just
like it was just so crazy. Like the whole the success of the business the first 2 years was just unbelievable. So yeah, I was like, wow, absolute whirlwind of an experience for sure.
So you mentioned about turning 30. And I suppose in the nature of this, it's about finding who you are. So do you want to know, would you want to know truly what your purpose is? Like obviously 30 is a big defining number nowadays. So would you, if someone could say, right, you're here, this is what your purpose is, or would you rather look at it as, here we are, it's the journey, even if that question never gets answered of my defined purpose, I'd enjoy the process of looking for it?
Oh, I like that. I think this is hard for me because I honestly deep down feel like I know what my purpose, like I really truly know what my purpose is, and I feel like I live by that daily. I think there's always that nice discovery of like it's almost like when my weight loss clients will be like, oh, I want to lose a stone, and I'm like, well, when you lose a stone, you don't instantly just become happy. So it's not the end result that's ever going to, you know, make you happy. It's the journey to get there. And sometimes I have to remind myself of that, because the days to, you know, growing the business now are hard, and often you're like, well, how can I find joy in the struggle? You know, it's like you're like, oh, if one more person tells me it's about the journey, I'm like, oh, it's hard. But no, I think that if you didn't know, I suppose, what your purpose was, I think that I would if I didn't, I would enjoy the process of just becoming and just learning, and because that could be ever changing. Like it might never be something that's absolutely like set in stone. You might completely diversify what you do, and you might still have that core value, but it might be, you know, you might do something completely different with it. For me, I always kind of like, now I definitely know that like I really want to help people. And so when I was 16, I was in a horrendous relationship that really impacted me. So when I then became qualified as a gym instructor, I then had a hard time thinking, oh, I'm not going to fit in here, and, you know, end up going down 2 bodybuilding shows to try and change my body, and, you know, and in that process I end up with an eating disorder, which overcoming that is now how I help people with their health and fitness. But I almost see myself, when I volunteer for schools, I almost think, oh, I wish I was that person that I had when I was 15, 16, you know, giving me body confidence talks or helping me with my body image and teaching me real nutrition. It's almost like I genuinely love helping people. And if people can also overcome those struggles, then I feel like, you know, I've made a huge impact. So, but yeah, I think if I didn't know what my purpose was, I would ultimately enjoy the process of discovering what it would be. Definitely. So
a greater preference on writing the chapter as opposed to trying to just title the book.
100%. Yeah, definitely. Because every chapter is going to be different. And saying that, I always like, well, of course I want to write a book. I'm like, I know what the book title is going to be called, but that's it. It's like every single chapter, like for me, looking back on my life, has had some sort of impact in some other, like there's some sort of greater lesson that's come of it. And whilst being a young person, for example, and experiencing what I did for a year, like many people would think it would be crazy for me to be like, oh, I forgive that person, and what I've learned from it is huge. But if I didn't experience that, I wouldn't then be in the position I am now to then overcome those challenges, to then be the person I was then, do you know? So it's, every chapter is so different.
So stripping away from the business and who people see in front of the camera on social media.
Yeah.
Who are you away from Thrive? Who are you away from social media? What do you like to do for you?
I think I'm such a simple person. And do you know what? I guess this is really hard. And I think that we're all really guilty of this as business owners, is we really do identify ourselves as the business. I think as a person, I'm very simple. I don't really I like going for walks. I like reading books. I like cooking. I like just escaping to quietness, I suppose, because my life is so busy. I think sometimes, whilst I try to be very transparent online, like in the background, sometimes it's so easy to see like even me looking at other people and thinking, wow, they're so confident. And, you know, sometimes it come across as that, but actually, like, sometimes I would never sit and completely document my entire life, but sometimes I think you're not also showing that ugly side of, not that it's ugly, but like the hard days and the real struggles. Because I think that being neurodivergent and having ADHD has such huge challenges for me, even by voluntarily taking medication every day for years, like really, really impacts my day, like day to day. You know, I can have such highs and lows in both, like in one day. And, you know, I could be really happy right now and I'd be crying about something later and the world is ending. And, you know, so I think sometimes it's that, you know, I do sit on social media and been like yap away on stories and been like, you know, really happy to do so. And then actually sometimes at home, I'm like, sometimes not that person as well, like the complete opposite. But I think in terms of like what I get up to in the day to day, I'm really simple. I go to the gym sometimes. Go for walks, like a coffee. Like I really just enjoy the simple things in life that just slow me down, really, to be honest. Yeah, I'm not that majorly more exciting than that.
So where do you see yourself in the next sort of 12 months, 3 to 5 years? Personal, business, what's the game plan?
That's a really, really great question. And it's the first time ever that I have not actually set any intentional goals. And it feels very weird because I actually have no idea. And I'm actually okay with that, because I think sometimes, for example, if I were to look back 2 or 3 years ago, I'd never have imagined myself like being where I was today. And what I mean by that is that going through a separation last January and changing my life and moving house and selling house and buying a house over here, and then in that process the business really nearly collapsed and having to reinvent that again and trying to bring previous people back. Like last year was so chaotic that I never thought that, and one, I never thought I'd be living in Glenrothes, so here we are. So you know, like looking back a year ago, I never thought that this year would even look like this. So I'm almost a bit like, oh, I'm a bit scared. What's going to happen next? I think for this year, it's just being, like just being calm and being still and not creating new projects every 4 weeks, and just like enjoying being inside my community and helping people that way, helping people achieve their goals, and in that focus on a bit of business growth now that the business is where I need it to be again, and just enjoying life a little bit more, because it's been really chaotic. So, and I've never just had a period of time where I've just being just still and present. And but then again, I'm like, I've got ADHD, I can't sit still, I have to do something new all the time. Personally, I'm trying to look for other different areas of like self-development that's a little bit different, picking up new hobbies. Because like when you're like, oh, what do you do? I'm like, I don't really do very much, but I'm also quite content at that. But just trying to learn new skills that are different, like, I don't know, crochet. Is that because I'm nearly 30? I don't know. Just trying to do different things and experience different things.
Mm-hmm.
But nothing really set in stone. It's the first year I've never had hard set goals because I'm a bit like, what will be, and see what life really presents itself as. Yeah.
I think that's a massive thing. There's not a lot nowadays where it's about just being.
Yeah.
Everyone's always moving, doing stuff, things happening. And I think from, especially the position you're in with the businesses, just being and hearing that from your point of view is massive. And I think that's quite good and reflective, especially for people who are maybe where you were 10 years ago.
Yeah.
That you can just be
Oh,
things will still happen.
Absolutely. I feel like it's a bit of a caveat to like what I said in terms of like opportunities. Well, like they're not going to just find you, but it's almost like, I mean, I'm absolutely here for them all and I will absolutely take them. Like, you know, I get the most random email sometimes. I'm like, absolutely, I'll do that. And, you know, I'm totally here for it. But I think more from what I mean is that like, I've not really had the confidence in the product I was selling for a long time because I rebranded last year, which I think was a really good decision. But then I would say it was a failed relaunch because, or a rebrand launch, I should say, because I then decided to change my entire life 4 weeks later and moved to Glenrothes. And, you know, that was a hard time. So last year should have been the energy that went into that and like really growing the brand, but I didn't. So in terms of that, I think it's just like, it doesn't have to be starting something new all the time. Like as long as I guess my product is where I want it to be, that's the difference. And now it's a case of, well, as long as I'm helping my community and they get the results that they want, then they're going to tell people about it. So, and I'm quite content doing that every day. And that's fine for me. Like, obviously, you know, I'll look at areas like coming into schools and going to colleges and spending time like doing talks and the things that I enjoy doing. But you don't have to, I'm like, for the last 4 years, I have grafted so much and like launching things are so hard. Like, you're all in. Like, my only day off probably between November and now was Christmas Day for half a day. Like, and that's not being like, woo, hustle culture's cool. Like, that's not me being really proud of that. That's just been like, well, I knew that January was a really busy time in the health and fitness industry, obviously. And I knew that my product, to getting it right was important. I didn't really have a choice. Like I'm now set up in life to the degree where I want to be. And if I didn't sort it, then am I going to wait another year to be presented with that opportunity again? So I'm like, it's a tiring process launching things all the time. And it's just like, it can just leave you knackered. It can destroy your nervous system. It can just, you know, you don't want to have poor mental well-being. It can increase stress levels. So it's just like, sometimes it isn't worth it. So I'm like, yeah, just take time just to, I don't know, go for a walk and just not rush, you know, and enjoy it, really, to be honest. Slow down a little bit. And doing that, it's resting, really. And then before you know it, I'll be like guns blazing, yeah. When the time is right, though, like when I feel recovered from what feels the last year's been absolutely wild. So
there's two things there. I think, well, I used to be more in the fitness industry than I am now. And looking at that from my perspective is you're allowed to be proud of everything you've done. Like, massive changes. They're not just massive changes. I remember seeing you when you were in Fife Leisure face to face to now.
Did you? That's funny. That's terrible. I'm like, well, where were you?
Carnegie?
Oh, yeah, of course, absolutely. Yeah, that's funny.
So it's a massive,
a long time ago.
Massive difference, massive change. And I remember COVID hitting and thinking about online, and I was fortunate enough to have a little gym that went under the radar. And you could still PT in. But I tried the online, but because I didn't go all in, things are different. So yeah, you're allowed to be proud and you're allowed to take time and just be. And at the end of the day, you're still watering the plant, you're still working on it, it's still going to grow. And the opportunities, the leaves, they're still going to come.
Absolutely, yeah. I think if there's anything I've learned as well is that, like, I think because the success was so fast, that's abnormal in the business world. Like, it's very abnormal. Like, that's not normally how things work in business. You don't just start a business and it goes really good, really high, it's very fast. Like, normally it's like, you know, you're really going through the trenches for a long time and it's like, you know, and then it starts to see that steady growth, and then you go through a bit of a dip, and then, you know, whereas like I was almost presented with the opposite way. So now it's almost like I'm comparing myself to the previous 2 years, which has been very hard.
Yeah.
So it almost is like you can beat yourself up about that and been like, well, why is it not as good as it used to be? But again, the circumstances are completely different. And there's also nothing to stop me doing that again. But yeah, I think many people are really guilty of not celebrating their own successes. And I think that's why now when I went through that rebrand and I had to change software, I remember essentially I had to cancel all my subscriptions. So that meant I had no business. Like I had no money coming in because I just had to cancel everybody off. And it was the best thing to do for long term, because otherwise I could never run a business if I hadn't made that decision. But I remember I did that, and then lots of people came back, and I was like, wow, like this was amazing. So away I went to the Co-op and I bought myself a bottle of champagne. Okay, bit extra. On a Wednesday night, I was like, I'm going to celebrate. Because like a lot of people came back and I was so buzzing. I was like, well, okay, I'm going to celebrate. I'm not materialistic either, by the way. Just really wanted to celebrate on a Wednesday. I was so proud of myself. And then that's when I remember someone was like, well, you can't celebrate yourself every day. And I was like, okay, bye. Like, get me out of here ASAP. But like, we're so guilty of that. Like, we don't celebrate our wins. And that, like, I literally don't care how small they are anymore. But yeah, you know, I think sometimes when we slow down and stop to physically ask ourselves those reflective questions, to reflect on our journey is so important. Or not writing it down as well is so, like, you have to write these things down and bring them to your awareness, because otherwise it's so easy to focus on the negatives. It's so easy to focus on what you're not doing rather than just being grateful and happy for what you have done really well.
So, yeah, people like that, you definitely don't need.
No, I don't.
You'll have heard of Matthew McConaughey.
Yes.
He said something that I found quite interesting, was he was being himself and someone said, you're so full of yourself. And he sat there and he thought to himself, well, who else am I going to be full of? And he's like, celebrate everyone.
Absolutely.
Especially the small ones. He says, because the smaller the win is, the bigger the celebration.
Absolutely.
When the big one comes, you'll feel it.
I love that.
And then from there, we're talking about sort of planting the seeds and growing and watering your tree.
And thriving.
Previous episode, I spoke to a comedian called Brennan Reese, and towards the end, he gave this bit of advice, and it got me thinking about how I want to end sections.
Okay.
And we were talking about mental health and how do you check in on yourself, and he said, well, someone once told me, check the weather. And it took him a long time to understand what that meant. And then one day it hit him that the weather's always changing. So is how you feel mentally. And as you said, you could be laughing about one thing 1 minute and crying the next. And living in Scotland, the weather changes just as quick. So he says, check the weather and dress appropriately. If you sit there and you think everything's pretty good, it's probably going to rain in 5 minutes. But just dance in the sun for those 5 minutes. And when it's raining, grab an umbrella. Don't sit and soak in it. So I kind of feel, coming from that, what's one piece of advice or one story or situation you'd like to pass on to the next guest?
I don't think it's going to be as good as the comedians, though. I felt really inspired by that. I'm like, oh, wow. Yeah, I definitely think for me,
or even a question you'd like to ask.
Well, do you know, I think it's about just not, I honestly think the best thing that I've ever done was change my environment. I honestly think that if you are somebody that is also in a similar situation, that you know that something isn't right and you know that you're not happy and you have to trust yourself. Like, I almost feel like sometimes these life decisions are the scariest things in the world. But like there is that light at the end of the tunnel, 100%. And nobody ever warned me with personal growth you would outgrow people. Like nobody, I never heard anyone talk about it. I almost felt really weird. Like I didn't feel like I fit in anymore. I just had nothing in common to talk to anyone about. And I just thought, well, is the problem me? It was me, because I had outgrown my circle, but it wasn't a bad thing, you know, and I had to I changed my environment, and it was one of the best things that I ever did. And I think that going right back to the start of the podcast, talking about taking risks, well, that was a huge risk in my life, and probably now one of the biggest ones. But I almost believe that, when you are faced with that resistance, when you are faced with a hard challenge, something good will always come off the back of it. So for me, that was changing my environment and never being scared to do that. Never be scared to be selfish. Ultimately, we do only have one life. And it's something that I always remind myself of, is that we don't get a second go at any of this. Like, this is what we are presented with. There's no point waiting until tomorrow because we only have today. Like, this is it. Like, so... Yeah, I think that's the most significant thing in my life that I would definitely say that I'm really glad that I did. And, here I am a year later, and I'm very grateful that I have done that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Woohoo!